Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Shadow Demon, a hero for nerds. Shadow Demon is a ranged intelligence support whose kit mostly comes down to being a massive defensive toolbox with some interesting offensive capabilities. He's a very strange hero, it's difficult to draw parallels between him and others, and he lacks a bit of that internal combo that most Dota 2 heroes have. However, if you're the kind of person to play around and find weird-ass combos in card games, you'll probably like him. While lacking that big internal combo, his abilities do interact in strange and interesting ways, and a skilled Shadow Demon player can make you absolutely regret ever hitting the play button. Keep in mind that not only is true for those playing against him, but also those on his team as well, because Shadow Demon is capable of absolutely griefing his team like crazy if he doesn't know what he's doing. Still, the same abilities that will send him straight to low prio are the exact same ones that give him an incredible defensive toolbox. And as long as you're playing Shadow Demon, you have ways to interact with the enemy team and your own in ways that you may not even intend. The result is a very strange character who, in the early game, functions as an amazing lane harasser with a very unique way of interacting with the enemy lane, and in the late game, either securing high ground or completely losing the game in a single second by accidentally hitting the Q button at the wrong time. He's very fun, would recommend, expect to get reported. Shadow Demon's iconic traits are sort of myriad and spread throughout his kit, but if there's one thing that you're going to remember him for, it's Shadow Poison. This ability is a ranged skill shot with an incredibly wide hitbox, kind of similar to the Swarm by Weaver, except instead of applying a bug to you that you have to right-click off, it applies a debuff that stacks every time you get hit by it. It travels relatively slowly, but don't let that confuse you. It's very easy to get hit by this several times in a row in lane, especially when he's casting it from the trees and you can't see the initial cast point. The scaling is very strange. I'm not even going to try to explain it. Basically, if you get hit by it 5 times in a row, you die. Is that literally true? No. But is it metaphorically true? Yes. Shadow Demon's Shadow Poison has a very strange scaling facet where it basically makes it so that as soon as you take more than 5 stacks, and he can continue to stack them from there, you're going to take an insane amount of magic damage equivalent to a Laguna Blade or a Finger of Death or some other massive magic nuke. As a result, you need to avoid getting hit by this at all costs. Whenever he casts it, you're going to have to dance out of the way. This is going to cost you last hits. You will have to make peace with this. Laning against Shadow Demon oftentimes feels like playing Dance Dance Revolution instead of Dota. It's very annoying, and you may think that the obvious counterplay of buying a magic wand would be enough to get rid of it. However, this is not the case. You see, if someone picks Shadow Demon, they are effectively announcing that they are the smartest person in the lobby. And the smartest person in the lobby knows that you don't get wand charges if you don't see them cast the spell. The Shadow Demon will immediately move into the trees, monitor your own magic wand, and determine if you have vision of him while he casts Shadow Poison. If you do gain wand charges, he will then use the sentry that he already had, of course, to deward you and then continue to cast Shadow Poison and stack up damage on you in a way that is very difficult to interact with. If you've played against Monkey King, you may be familiar with the process of running away as soon as he has 2 Jingo Mastery stacks, because you know that if he gets a third, he can use his Q to secure it. Shadow Demon is quite similar. He can also hit Q on you to secure the 5th stack of Shadow Poison, instantly killing you. This is because Disruption is a messed up ability. When he puts it on you, it's effectively like OD Astral Imprisonment. You can't be affected by anything. But when you get out, he's going to have 2 illusions. And as long as you're in there, he can hit you with Shadow Poison. This means that as soon as you have 3 stacks on you, you have to be careful, because the cooldown is so low that he can apply 2 more stacks to you while using Disruption, and then deal a Laguna Blade to you while your own illusions beat your freaking ass. This makes Shadow Demon a very irritating hero to play against. There is counterplay, such as playing the Vision game against him in order to secure the Juge wand charges, but overall it's going to be very difficult. Oh, and that cooldown? Yeah, it's really low. Low enough to the point where he can completely whiff a single cast of Shadow Poison and still keep the stacks on you to continue it with the next cast. If you're playing against Shadow Demon, be very careful, because he knows that you probably didn't read all of his abilities. That's why you're watching a PowerPoint right now. If you get 3 stacks of Shadow Poison, be careful and try not to get hit by the next one. If you have to sack a melee creep last hit in order to make that happen, do it. Keep in mind that Shadow Poison is purgeable, so heroes that can purge themselves like Slark or have access to low cooldown purges like Oracle will make his lane a lot more difficult. Now as for the griefing part of things, let's talk a little bit about Disruption. Shadow Demon's Q is an incredibly powerful spell that can lose you the game in a single keystroke. It effectively functions as both OD's Astral Imprison, or maybe a Yule's would be more accurate except it can't be nullified, as well as a Manta style. When the disruption ends, the hero that he chose, whether it be ally or enemy, will have 2 illusions spawn on the side of them. These illusions do a considerable amount of damage and apply on hit effects. This makes it incredibly useful for a variety of purposes, including purposely losing MMR. The most obvious example of disruption is using it on a hero that's very good at hitting towers. You pop these and then micro the illusions up to the high ground to hit the tower. This allows you to take high ground relatively safely, albeit not very quickly. The ability to take heroes that are really good at hitting towers, such as Luna for example, and then multiply those effects makes him incredibly powerful in the late game. And if you're winning, Shadow Demon is a great hero to have on your team. However, as useful as that is, it is far from the only thing that Disruption is good for. It is also a very long banish effect, which means that if the enemy team is going on you, he can use it as a powerful defensive tool. At the same time, it also means that if you're TPing the lane, he can also use it to cancel that TP. If you have any kind of channeled abilities, there is always a chance that the Shadow Demon will completely shit his pants and use Disruption on you during it, ruining your spell. This also applies if you're man-fighting someone, and while it may not look like it, you know for a fact that you can win. Shout out to all my fellow Troll Warlord spammers, I know your pain. However, on balance, Disruption is a very strong ability, and you should always thank Shadow Demon players and respect them, because they are taking the game on their shoulders and potentially falling down the stairs with it. Let's talk a little bit about how to play Shadow Demon. The lane is fairly straightforward. You're going to spend the majority of the time hiding in the trees to avoid giving wand charges while spamming Shadow Poison on the enemy laners. If you can hit both of them, that's nice, but try to focus on just one. Getting one hero up to 6 stacks is way more impactful than getting 2 heroes up to 3. You can use Disruption not only to annoy the enemy laners, especially if they have powerful on-hit effects, heroes like Abaddon and Anti-Mage are prime for this, but you can also use it to set up amazing combos. Think of it a little bit like Nightmare Light, except it interacts with certain spells in even better ways. If there's a Mirana on the team and you're playing SD5, the offlaner is going to have a very rough time. Use Disruption, the Mirana shoots out arrow, the arrow is guaranteed to hit because it passes through friendly units, the hero is stunned, you kill the offlaner, your carry is happy. Maybe they'll even forgive you for when you mess up the high ground later on. Mids who have delayed stuns also benefit quite a bit from a Shadow Demon being on the team. A Leshrac sees it as a great way to land Split Earth, and Alina, with a tiny amount of foresight, can use it to land Light Strike Array and her full combo guaranteed. A lot of your gameplay is going to revolve around setting up these combos and keeping yourself alive to set up future ones, so items like Glimmer Cape, Aether Lens, Force Staff, etc. are great choices. Outside of that, just spam Shadow Poison. Now I haven't talked much about his ultimate because it's a very weird ability, but there is a lot of situational use for it. Applying it to a hero will cause a very long duration stun that, at the end, deals a metric ton of magic damage. That alone is pretty good, but if you get an Aghanim Scepter, you get 2 of them, and it breaks. This means that going against heroes that are very susceptible to break, such as Bristleback and Phantom Assassin, you can be an absolute nightmare as Shadow Demon, but you have to farm a 4200 gold item, and that is very difficult. You can use Shadow Poison in order to farm jungle camps and lane creeps alike, which helps a little bit, but this hero is not great at hitting creeps and farming up. So, if you know that you have to go an Aghanim Scepter, do your best to help your mid laner or off laner farm heroes in the mid game. That's the best way to get farm as Shadow Demon. Then finally, when it comes to the late game and you're trying to siege high ground, make sure to use Disruption on a hero that's good at hitting buildings, then send those illusions to go hit buildings. It's slow, it's tedious, and it's boring as shit, but it's a very safe way to take high ground and eventually transfer an advantage into a win. Disruption has a high grief potential, and I think that there's a lot of abilities in Dota that are like that. I wrote a bit about it here, feel free to read it if you like. Now, if you're upset about playing against Shadow Demon, first off, that's weird. Who really cares that much about this hero? Second off, here's how to beat it. Step 1 is to go ahead, open up Spotify, YouTube Music, whatever program you use, and just put on some jams. You're going to be dancing against this hero in an effort to dodge all the Shadow Poison, you might as well have a soundtrack. I put some suggestions on the right side of the screen for whatever kind of music genres you enjoy, but personally, what I would do is just go into your world menu and then set it up so that you have the deadmau5 music pack playing. Other than that, you can just put on his second best album in the background. It's the one I listed there. I will not reveal which one I think is better. The second trap that players often fall into going against Shadow Demon is going all in on his illusions. For the love of God, just hope that your ranged heroes right-click them down. Do not commit spells on the illusions. If you do so, you're going to lose the game. Shadow Demon's whole goal when it comes to the high ground situation is to slowly but surely wear down your tier 3 towers. If you do not take the bait and stand strong, you can honestly afford to lose that tier 3. Sieging barracks is much more difficult because of how much deeper they have to go into the base in order to deal any substantial damage to them. At that point, your melee heroes can go in and wear down the illusions themselves. Just don't cast spells and get ready for it. Outside of that, basic and hard dispels are the name of the game against this hero. Legion Commander, Omni Knight, Abba, I listed them all on the right side of the screen. You can just look at that if you want. And then also mobility is really good against him too. His ultimate is an extremely strong slow that lasts a very long time, but it doesn't do anything in the face of blinks. Having access to mobility tools on heroes like Anti-Mage, Queen of Pain, Faceless Void, etc. does a long way to mitigating the effects of his ult. Lastly, he's just a squishy in support do what you do with the rest of them, just jump the ass. Anti-Mage and Queen of Pain get bonus points for being able to both jump his ass and get out of there once he casts his ult on him, while also being excellent targets for it. If you can bait him to overcommit or use his disruption in a bad way, you can probably beat the Shadow Demon. But again, why are you mad at him, dude? He's a Shadow Demon. In conclusion, Shadow Demon is a very strange hero, and you should absolutely play him. He's got a weird mishmash of abilities that can either win or lose you the game, and you're going to be super annoying in the lane and definitely pay for it later. Peace on planet Earth.